Hello, and this now should be working. Hi, welcome to Bandit Badgers. I am Dave, your host for this session, and joining us as our Q&A guest is Thomas HÄRENSTAM. How you doing, Thomas?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
No, not a problem. Now, Thomas, if you didn't know, is already from Free League, um, and we've also got joining us. I've got different messages coming up straight away. Joining me as co-host is Lee. How you doing, Lee?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me again tonight.
Not a problem. And for those of you who don't know, thank you very much. I just heard a ping there. Baron Snowhand just subscribed for 10 months. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Now, for those who don't know, not only is Thomas the game director and lead designer of Twilight 2000, which is what we're going to talk about today, but he is also the co-founder of Free League, or one of the co-founders of Free League.
Yep.
So how... we've been in this kind of COVID lockdown global experience, and we mentioned it briefly just before we kind of came on live. What's been the biggest interest for Free League over this time? How do you think that games are bringing people together? There's a bit of an open-ended question for you.
Yeah, I mean it was hard to know what was going to happen when that all started. But it's been interesting, and I think it's we've a lot of people have I think games have been a way to get away from things and to actually, I mean, so I think we've, if anything, we've seen an increased interest in games, in our games, in gaming in general. So I think it's been interesting, and of course also a shift perhaps to playing online and so on. So that's obviously been. That was happening before COVID, but it's clearly been increased, and that's one of the reasons we've been moving into developing games and releasing games on virtual tabletop platforms, including we did for Twilight 2000 also. We had started doing that before COVID, but we really kicked it into high gear just to make sure we could get the games out that way at a time when it was more difficult to actually meet and play in person.
Because you do a lot of things with Foundry now as well, don't you?
Right. Yeah.
Have you found that to be just a different gateway of people, a different audience? Is there? I'm a very kind of round the table. I prefer the books and physical things, but having that as an extra medium, has that been beneficial? Is it a lot of extra work to produce that content?
There is. To be honest, none of us in the core team really have the expertise to develop the modules on Foundry, because that's a different type of expertise that we don't have. So we work with external developers, and they've been great. So they do most of the work. There is some work, obviously, on the sort of administrative side, but it's not been. It's been mostly been a great way to introduce the game in a new form to some new people, but also I think our philosophy is that you shouldn't have to choose between playing physical games or online. We want to give options to do both and use both methods. So we've been offering these kind of bundles and things where you get the print and the virtual tabletop edition at the same time and so on. So we want to give people more options to play in different ways, so you don't have to go one route or the other. And it's been good. It's been the interest has been great. I mean, we did Foundry. We also have some modules out on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds also, but Foundry is, I guess, the focus right now. It's been easy to work with for a number of reasons. So that's we'll continue and release more content on Foundry, down the line.
Sure. Now we've had some questions coming in previously, because when we sent it out across socials that we were going to be doing this, we asked people to send in questions, and as usual, we get those kind of questions of how do I become a game designer? When we have writers and artists on, we kind of get those questions. People who want to take their first steps or realize what they do, and as we were just talking before we kind of went on air. They those kind of courses weren't available when we was at school and at college. But is there any advice straight away that you can offer people how to get started, how to get noticed even?
Yeah, it's not that easy. I think at least my background, and I think many others have. I don't have a formal education in game design. I'm a journalist by trade, so I've just shifted into game design by just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's probably the common route for a lot of people in the business. It's very much a learning by doing from a very early age. I think I started playing role-playing games at age 11, I think, and I think I wrote my first one at age 12. I mean, it was obviously horrible,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've been writing role-playing games since then, on and off, and in the last couple of years, in a more professional way, I guess. So I think that's not much of useful advice, maybe, but just doing it. I think getting stuff out there is really where you need to start. I think there are now, not when I started out, but now I think there are classes you can take in like world building and things like that. Maybe not tabletop RPG design. I guess I'm not sure there are actually schools for that yet, but more like general world building. They can be used for computer games or tabletop games, or I mean, I think there are classes like that. I know we've been invited to hold as guest teachers in classes like that. So I know those are around. So if I started out today, I would probably look that up, because I think that can be really useful too. So that's one thing at least to check out.
We have a question from a viewer related to this, from Ellie Daisy. If someone has an idea for a game, who would they want to talk to about it?
Well, I mean, if that refers to Free League, you're certainly welcome to contact us. It's hard right now. We're very, swamped in projects, so it's hard to, and we don't do a jump on like external projects like that too much, but it's not impossible. So you're most welcome to contact us. And then we'll just see what we can do. But otherwise, I think it's probably easier. But I would, if I wanted to get started, I would probably release things myself to build an audience for myself using Drive-Through RPG. I mean, even the community content programs like the one we have. A lot of great creators release their stuff there, and that's can be useful because you have an audience already, maybe, because you can write modules for existing games. So that's one way to get noticed, and you don't need to depend on anyone else's goodwill. You just need to do it and release it, and it's out there and get noticed and start building some momentum around what you do. I think that's probably a better way, perhaps, because I think most small role-playing publishers like us and others we're really busy with our own projects. So it's to actually bring someone else on from the outside. It happens, but it's fairly rare, I'd say.
I wanted to pick up on something you mentioned. You've been creating games since you was basically a kid in school.
Yeah.
I remember writing games, mud games, on a BBC computer, because that was the best you could do. But you had to kind of do like a flowchart story of like I made a story, and it's actually one of the guys who's also a badger. We were deep sea divers, and you had to explore the wreckage of the Titanic, and you had to find a key and a key card. Why the key cards were in different rooms, I have no idea, on the Titanic. And there was a big boss of like a giant squid, a proper kind of sea monster, and I think it was one of those kind of school. You do things at school where particular projects really kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And you kind of think this wasn't school. This was fun, and I was doing something, and it's work. And I think that took me off into one direction. You mentioned as well, like I mentioned it. You're also the co-founder of Free League. But what did you do before starting doing game design? Like, you've done that as a hobby and as an interest. What did you do as a day job?
Yeah, I mean, I went into journalism. So I worked for quite some time as a journalist in a couple of different places. I worked for about 10, 12 years for the Swedish National News Agency. So I worked mainly in the foreign news sections. I worked in the Middle East for a number of years, and then I was stationed in Jerusalem, and I worked in Syria and Iraq and Iran and all of those places for a number of years. So that was during those years, the gaming interest was, I mean, I didn't really have time to dedicate myself to it that much, but it was always still there.
Yeah.
And then, things happened in life. I settled down a little bit, and I started, move around less, and then I figured I should, what should I be doing now with my time? And I started, pick up RPGs again, and kind of picked up that interest and dove full on into that, and started doing some freelance stuff, very small stuff, and then that kind of grew, and things happened, and it kind of just ballooned into Free League eventually.
So you mentioned you were a photojournalist.
A writer, not photo.
Right.
Yeah.
So was you? I mean, you mentioned like Iraq. Was you out there seeing a lot of? Were you a combat journalist? Foreign
Yeah,
news?
I mean, I was in conflict zones for sure. I mean, I was not. I mean, some of those photographers are really on the front lines.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily had to go, closest to the shooting, but sure, absolutely, I did see, war up close. I was in Gaza during a couple of the wars there, and I was in Lebanon, not during the 2006 war, but right after it. So of course those experiences have informed the design of Twilight 2000 to some extent.
That's what I was going to ask, because Twilight 2000. Well, Twilight's been around since the 80s.
Yeah.
So that's when we were playing games back then.
Yeah.
This is now the fourth or fifth edition of Twilight.
Fourth.
And this is a war game. This is a World War III that never happened. This is a war game, and this is modern-ish warfare. It doesn't get as far as today's date. I think it happened. I think the story kicks off in the mid-90s when it happens. So that was my next question: is did the things that you've seen, like your personal experiences, when you're looking at this game, you go, well, actually, no, I can add a bit more reality to this game.
I think so. I mean, it's also that for me, even though there's a strong military component, but for me, Twilight 2000 was not just about military simulation and doing that. I wanted to, in this game, also show the other side of war from the civilian standpoint, and just it not all about weapons and guns and that's all there too, but just to show also tough choices. I mean, it's really much. That's what we try to get across in this game, is that who do you help? What do you risk for other people? What are you prepared to do to help others? I mean, questions like that is what we wanted to get into this game a lot, not just show off lots of cool guns. That's also there, but I wanted that balance, and I think that was very much informed by the previous work that I did. So yeah, for me, that's definitely part of it.
There's no, go on, Lee.
So it enters more of a morally gray area. Do you deal at all with the politics of war, or is it focused more on the combat section or the combat action of war?
Yeah, the politics of war. I mean, to some extent. I mean, I think we wanted to focus more on the personal.
Okay.
I mean, the kind of low level on the ground stuff. And that's why, I mean, there is obviously a backstory there. I mean, how the world came to this place and what happened during this alternate 1990s that turned into World War III. So there's politics there for sure, but and I enjoyed doing that bit. And that's one of the parts that have been, a lot of vocal opinions about that, how that turned out. And that's been a big point of, some people hate the timeline we did, others think it's fine. And there's been a lot of discussions about that. And I think that is not unimportant, but for me, that's not the heart of the game. I think the heart of the game is much more personal and on the ground. Exactly what led to that point is interesting, but it's not really what the game is. It's more of a stage setter. What the game is actually about is what do you do now? I mean, that's kind of the whole, you're on your own now, and now what do you do in this horrible world? What goals do you set? What do you strive for? What do you do? I mean, that's the question that I find is more interesting than the politics of what led to that downfall to that point. But yeah.
Cool. You mentioned I was quite. You mentioned like the characters, the stories, the questions you have to. No matter the answer, it's still a bad choice. You know who wins in a certain situation. We've seen that in games before, and I really like that of how you put the ownership on the players. So me as a player, I come in and I have a difficult choice to make, and we know from playing games, it's escapism. But I think we like to have those character building choices. It allows us to do different things and try different things. And we'll look at the box for those of you watching. We're going to look at the box in the kind of the second half of this, and we will get to it. There's in the box also scenarios that you can play out. So there's like a mini campaign. You can do different scenarios, and you've got things in there. There is a school in there, and one of the maps has the football pitch, but it's then a graveyard, and it was bits and pieces like that really kind of sent the message home. I mean, we talked before we went live about the artwork, but it was those little touches where you think, wow, these people, like we may have seen it in the Walking Dead TV show. You got these apocalyptic things happen, and the remnants of towns and cities and things are still around us. And what have they become? They've been repurposed.
Yeah.
And how we, the search for shelter, food, drink, how we get out of the rain, people you trust, people you meet along the way, and pockets of society. And I love that interaction. I'm really keen to see. We're going to be playing it in January. We're going to be playing this and around the table, and hopefully we're going to be filming that as well. And I'm when I've been reading through the book, I've been really excited just because I can imagine the players around the table coming up with those decisions and how they break it down. And for me as a game master, or in this case the referee, that's a bit where I get to sit back and I get to watch them creating the story and create that.
Yeah.
I love that interaction.
Yeah, I mean that's the way we hope it will work. And then of course, I mean, we do want, I mean, particularly in this game, to have these, I mean, real issues brought in. Of course, then there has to be some hope and light and fun in there also. I mean, so you need that, and that's what we want to do, is to get a bit of. I mean, this is a pretty bleak game, to be honest. I mean, it's not a but still, even in that world, we also want to have a bit of hope and light mixed in also, so that you get some contrast. Otherwise, it will just be too dark, I think. So that's also a challenge.
So, what was the choice behind choosing Twilight? Why bring that? Why dust it off? Why revise it now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really based on personal preference and just gaming passion. It was not really a strategic decision, business decision or anything like that. It was more of we picked it up. I played the first edition back in the 80s. That very first game that I mentioned that I wrote when I was like 12 was about the resistance, the Norwegian resistance movement in World War II against the Nazi Germany during the occupation there. So I went to Oslo and did a lot of research in museums. I was a really nerdy kid, and I wrote a role-playing because I just started getting into role-playing games. And that was the first one that I kind of wrote. I don't know if it was ever really completed, but it was basically a game. So
is that going to be the next Kickstarter? Are we going to see that one now?
Yeah, I'll bring that one up again.
There we go.
No, but then I think fairly shortly after that, I think Twilight 2000 just appeared, and that for some reason that was fairly close to what I had already been getting into. So I picked that up immediately, and I played it a bit with my brother, the first edition, and we enjoyed it. But I think we felt it was. We were like 12 and 15, and I think we felt it was a bit crunchy and hard to run, and we didn't play it that much, but it was one of those games that really stayed with me, that I really wanted to play, and I bought all the modules and I read a lot, and we played it some, but not as much as I would have wanted to. And it kind of stayed like a game like that. I got a second edition when that came, played that a bit also, but so really what happened a couple of years ago is that we just started thinking that it'd be fun, just for fun, to play first edition Twilight 2000, because that's such a fun thing. Well, I really enjoyed it back then, and I wanted to, do that again. So we did that, and we had a lot of fun with it. And then that led to the questions like, "Oh, what's going on with this game? Is this like license available, or what? Is there anyone working on it?" And we did some investigation, and that kind of led to us pitching for the franchise together with, actually not alone, because it turned out there was someone else already in talks with Mark Miller from Game Designers Workshop. He manages the license, and Angus Abramson, he runs Amargosa Press. He was already talking to Mark about a new edition, and we knew Angus, so we started talking to both of them, and that kind of ballooned into us just partnering up with Angus and Mark to present the pitch and make this new edition. So that's kind of how it started. It was basically just because we just loved the game and realized and of course we had to do something different, because this is year 2000 is obviously now very much in the past, so we couldn't. And we decided fairly early on to not place it in the near future, because we felt that would just have for a number of reasons. So that's where we decided to do it more like a retro alternate history type thing, and that really when things came together, and then that's the game we made.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Since you brought that up, and I was really curious about that actually. In making that decision to keep it in the 2000s and make it this retro nostalgia sort of element, is there a difference from how you played it in the 80s compared to how it plays now?
I think so, to some extent. Of course, back then that was the year 2000 World War III future was a very real threat. I mean, now that's not. I mean, obviously this is an alternate history, so it's not a real possibility in that sense. But I don't know if that makes that much of a difference in terms of how the game plays. I think you can still. I mean, I think it's more of the kind of situations you get into. The kind of stories that you create at the table, I think those will be fairly similar anyway. So I don't think that, for me at least, is maybe not a huge difference, really. The reason we decided to keep it in the year 2000 and not move it into our future is really that we wanted to keep a Cold War feel. We felt if we did something Twilight 2030, whatever, it would feel like more of a sci-fi tech game, and it would feel very different, I think. And also the main reason I think that we wanted to stay away from that is that near future settings, they tend to get old really fast. So just, in a year or two, something has happened that made the future we predicted just completely, obsolete. So that's if we create our own alternate history, that gives us much more freedom to create the world we want, and we don't have to worry about keeping up with current events to keep the game relevant.
Right. I just find it very interesting because it really changes the question in the core of the game from what would we do if this became a reality to what could we have done differently?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, to some extent, yeah. But I think also that the kind of moral human questions are the same, really, no matter what. So on those kinds of issues, right? On the larger political level, of course, then you're right. Then there's a clear difference between this kind of looking back and looking forward.
Sorry, I'm a sociologist, so I always look at the bigger picture.
Sure.
I like that though. Like you said, it was we had that time of growing up and being around for that. It's not, this, when we played Twilight the first time in the 80s, there was an expectation, and when we played Twilight 2000 now, it's an alternate timeline. It's like what they did in Star Trek. It is something that never happened, and we get to play that out. And when you look in the books and you have that timeline, whether you agree with the timeline or not, you show a snapshot of a real history before it diverges, and you've got governments and people in power, and where were you when the UK got nuked? What were you doing? And pockets of people who are there. There's some things are familiar, and then we'll come to this in a bit. But even the map, when you look at the pull-out map, and I was like, well, you got the names because we're based in sort of Poland. So you've got the towns and cities and everything there. And I was like, well, what are these? What are these? And you look at the key, and it says ruins. And then suddenly that kind of hit home. Oh, yeah, of course, they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
So the things that, I don't know, the things you may have relied on, or like, what if this would happen? Where would I go? You go, okay, yeah, we'll go there because there'll be shelter or hospitals or stuff we need. And it's not there. And there was this leads into my next question of, we've seen Tales from the Loop become a TV series, which is these kind of very dark, twisted sci-fi stories, which don't always have a happy ending. I mean, there's one where a boy just gets not turned into a robot, but his soul goes into a robot and stays there because it all gets twisted around. No spoilers. It gets twisted around.
Yeah.
Are we going to see a Twilight TV series? And you know, we've seen apocalyptic stuff before, like Walking Dead, and they've achieved this thing. Could we see a Twilight? I think that could be quite an interesting thing.
I think so. I mean, I think we've been discussing it, this game, to some extent. That's one term we've kind of kicked around, is it's a bit like Walking Dead without the zombies, because then you have other threats instead. But it's very much that kind of stuff. I think this would really work as a TV series too. That's a little bit beyond our, expertise. So we'll leave that to someone else to get that done. But absolutely, if that, were to happen, I think it could be great. It just struck me. There's one more thing that I think is interesting about an alternate history, is that you can also, and we do to some extent, comment on more current events, but you do it more by association, and by, you can allude to things that are present day events, but you do it indirectly, so you don't have to say exactly who you're talking about. I mean, obviously, there are some similarities perhaps between the Soviet leader in the game and the current, Russian leader. I think there are some, you could make those parallels if you wanted to. For example, I'm not saying that's exactly it's not like one-to-one, but just there are definitely, you can do comparisons if you want to. So you can, and that can free up storytelling a bit when you can use it in this way, instead of actually just presenting the actual future world that would have to be very much more aligned with our own history. So I think that also gives more creative freedom to even storytelling, also on the kind of larger political scale.
So, well, there is some support in the chat for Twilight 2000 TV series. So
cool.
You mentioned if it happened, would you ever do a cameo? Would you ever do like a Peter Jackson, just appear somewhere? So soldier in the background, just so you could say your inner world you help to create.
I'm not sure that's going to happen, but absolutely, if it does, I'm there. Absolutely.
Let us know.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how long did it take to get Twilight 2000 ready to launch? So you mentioned Mark Miller and Angus. You kind of partner up with those guys. From that day to this day, how long has that taken? Is that a year? Is that longer?
Let me think. I would think it's about 3 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe, okay. I think a bit more now since we talked to them. And then, I mean, we have been working on it all through this time. But of course, at certain periods, it's more intense than others. But yeah, I think it was 2018 that we kind of kicked it off.
Because was there was there any kind of correlation where you're working on a game which is post-apocalyptic and everyone is separated, then we all go experience into a COVID lockdown, and then suddenly you're like, wow, is there a bit of that can shape? Oh, this is how people have reacted. But when being
it's a different situation, but absolutely. And I guess one question that of course comes to mind is this a game to do in these times that are, hard times? Do we need a bleak RPG? But some people may think it's just too depressing. I don't feel that way myself. I think even exploring these kinds of themes can be, even therapeutic. I don't feel that way. But yeah, I mean, that's a question that obviously kind of came up. It's like, is this the right time for this game? But we felt that it's still was and is. So, but apart there, otherwise, I guess there's no specifics from current events and COVID that made it into the game. I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, a lot of it was done even before COVID happened. Also,
one of the things that came to me as I was looking through the material and I was looking over the premise of the game and even how bleak it is it calls back to that idea that we can do something in this situation. In COVID, in lockdown, there's not a lot you can do except sit at home and play Twilight 2000, for example. But this is something that you can actually, you feel like you're making a difference, even if it's, pretendy fun dice time with your friends and throwing around your clicky clacky math rocks. But it gives you a problem and you can solve it or make an effort towards solving it in some way or another. And that's therapeutic in a way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're absolutely right.
We are, so for everyone watching, we've only got Thomas for about an hour. So what we wanted to do was to have a look. So this is the game, okay? So this is available right now in the UK. You can buy it from your friendly local game store if you happen to have one. If you don't, you can buy them directly from Free League as well. freeleaguepublishing.com. And this box set, this is heavy, by the way. If you've bought any of the other like Free League boxes, like I got Alien, I've got Forbidden Lands and a few others, Simbarum. This one's heavy, okay, and this is £40 here in the UK, but there's a lot of stuff in here, and you may have seen sort of in the box below, Thomas, there's a pack shot in there going round in some of the artwork. But we wanted to what I'm going to do is I'll switch cameras around. And I've got to find my mouse. So we'll switch cameras around.
I might just mention briefly there that there are a number of Kickstarter backers, specifically in the US and Canada, who still haven't gotten the game. Mm-hmm. That's really we're really sorry about that delay. It's just shipping these days has been kind of bad. But so yes, you're right. You can find the game in local game stores in the UK, I think now. But I think there's still distribution in North America has been lagging a little bit behind. So I think Kickstarter backers will still get it before they see it in stores, at least almost all of them. So just wanted to mention that.
I have it. So this, again, as I mentioned, here's the pack shot. I won't go through the details, but we're going to have a look through in the box, and we can just shout things. For those of you watching live, if you see anything you want to have a particular look at from here, do let us know. Put your question or statement into live chat and we'll sort it out for you. Here's another question for Free League as a whole. I've really enjoyed these box sets. Is this a new format for you? Has this proved really, really popular? Because I also got Alien Destroyer of Worlds, which is a much skinny box, but it's a box set and everything you need is inside. Have you found these to be big big sellers for you? And the box really stays.
I guess, they're doing fine. I think it's more of a matter of that we feel, that's the way I want games to be games. I love books, but I think having boxed set, it brings something more, and to have handouts and maps and stuff, I think that really elevates things. When I love that personally. And for some of the other games, we're doing like starter sets now, and that's definitely for Twilight 2000, this is the games. It's not a starter set, it's like the game. And we decided to go with a boxed set because it's a bit of a throwback to first edition, but also because we wanted to have that stuff in there, like all of the battle maps and everything, and we just felt that to do this, it needs to be a boxed set. So that's why we did it. So and even for, like you mentioned, for Alien, we're doing scenarios and modules in thinner boxes, and we're looking to do that for Twilight as well. So hopefully, probably the first module that we're working on, Urban Operations, will also be like a skinny, thinner boxed set with extra maps and stuff. So that's the plan.
We have a question about modules, actually. Is there a means to transfer Twilight 2000 1.0 modules to this version or even other versions?
Yeah, absolutely. There's even conversion rules in this game. So there are conversion. If you have the old modules, they should run. I mean, you might need to tweak the backstory a little bit, whatever. But basically, they should work fairly well with these conversion rules.
There you go. I
Yeah.
love doing that. I love going back into older editions
Yeah,
and
me
picking
too.
out things, and like there's one game line that I love that has one monster that's only in first edition, and so I
Right.
love bringing that specific monster into future edition.
Yeah.
So I was just flicking through some of the cards in here. These are nice. It's got nice texture to it. It's nice size, great artwork.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. Our lead artist, his name is Nicholas Brandt, did all the kind of line art stuff in the game. The stuff you see on those cards.
I've just noticed as well. We got is this a deck of cards?
It is a deck of cards. That's
cool.
We felt that was a nice touch. The first edition uses a normal deck of cards to determine NPC motivations.
Mm-hmm.
I always found that was kind of neat, and we wanted to do something in that same vein. But since encounters is a key thing in this game, the way encounters work is really it's kind of the meat of the game. So we decided to place the encounters on cards. Yeah. For easy reference for the referee, and it's it's a quick way to generate encounters on the road, and just use the cards for it. And you can play cards with them too, so it works for that if you want.
I was just thinking back to the some of the old Vietnam films where in their helmets they always had like the Ace of Spades and some things like that. I was like, is that what the soldiers are doing? Lovely. I mean, that's a full set of encounter cards. That is lovely. We also go ahead.
Grab an encounter card at random. I want to see what would be in my helmet in Twilight 2000.
Okay, here we go. And you have to stick with this now.
Yeah, I'm going to be Cash's King. Hey!
Cash's King, and it's the Jack of Diamonds.
I'm cool with that. There is an error with Nightbot real quick. It's wrong. It has the wrong guest and what they're talking about. So
it's got alien on there.
Right? It's got alien. We're not alien tonight. Sorry. It is Twilight 2000.
Yeah. And we got some dice as well. So you got 15 custom dice, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
Just doing a quick thing. So we've got. Oh, where you're going to shoot someone, I guess.
Yep, that's the hit location die.
Let's take out the kneecaps there. Look.
Yeah.
These are nice as well. I got different icons on there, plus a number.
Right. Yeah. This one the game uses it's based on the Year Zero engine that we use in other games, but it works a little bit differently. So that's what we call base dice in this game.
And you've got the kind of the military stencil there for
the
fronts. It's really nice. Nice shade of green on there as well. And you got the D6 with a bullet.
Yeah, those are ammo dice. That's kind of the core mechanic of the game is how ammunition is handled. I mean, this is the kind of military component of it, so that's where these dice come in. So
that's very nice. These are your initiative cards as well. So when you're doing initiative, you can go around the table. You can pick one at random, and is it lowest number goes first?
Right. Yeah. And we feel that's a nice way to manage initiative because you can never roll the same. If you roll initiative, there are no ties, and you don't need to break ties, and also you can keep the card on the table so that you also remember your the initiative turn order, which kind of is a nice touch, we feel.
And then in every box we have the Free League catalog. So if you're watching this and you're not familiar with what Free League do, they do Alien RPG, which Thomas has, I believe you worked on that one as well. You've worked on all of these, really, haven't you?
Forbidden Lands. Almost, not all, but most, yeah.
Tales from the Loop, Symbaroum, which I've absolutely fallen in love with.
Oh yeah.
Twilight 2000, Vezin. We've got so we're filming it. This is when we're if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, we're filming this in 2021 November 2021. There's a brand new Vezin Kickstarter coming out very soon.
Yep.
There's Coriolis Mutant Year Zero and Morkborg. So there's a huge catalogue of different things. Something definitely for everyone. So this is the kind of the Game Master's book, which they call the referees. So you're not Game Master, you're the referee.
Yeah, that's also from earlier editions, so we wanted to stay true to that even though it's called Game Master in our other games. Here it's a referee.
Okay, and you've got a 112-page document there. So you've got maps. We've got a lot of breakout. Oh, and the artwork. So some of the artwork you will see on the side of our screen. I'm just going to kind of flick through. So if anybody sees anything you want to talk about, please do. The artwork, as always, if I bring the box out of the way, there we go, is stunning.
Stunning. It's so gorgeous. Your art team are fantastic. I mean, I've done this with Aliens. I've looked through your Coriolis. I've looked through Symbaroum. Every single book, I'm just, oh, I want to see what this does. Oh, I want to know more about this crashed plane thing. What's going on here? Tell me more. It's very, we were talking about this. It was very atmospheric.
Yeah.
It's very engaging. And it all flows really nicely together.
Yeah, we've always felt that we want to make good games. I mean, mechanically and content-wise in terms of the text, but also the way it's presented and the way it interacts with the art and the graphic design and how that all comes together. I think that's just as important as the text. Really, I think it's the way these things come together is the game. So
it's like. Yeah, it's like when you go to a fancy restaurant and you get like the nice little swirl of sauce and everything. It's the plating of an RPG. We did get another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How solid are the rules for making civilian characters? That was always a weakness of the old T2K.
Well, you definitely can do it. There are two different ways to create characters. There's the archetype method, which is kind of a quick and dirty way to really quickly generate a character. You can do it civilian. There are a couple of archetypes that are more of a military and some are more civilian. I guess there are more of the military kind, but there are civilian archetypes too. You also have the life path method that takes a bit longer. You actually generate your character year by year in a way. And you can choose civilian careers as well as military careers. I would definitely say there is fairly significant support to play civilians. Whether it's enough or not, that can always be debated, and you can always do more. But I think it's fairly solid.
I quite like the layout of this as well. You've got the kind of these bits and pieces, these added extra notes, the post-its, the paperclip. It reminds me very much of what I would think a military document might look like.
Right. It's very much inspired by kind of military field manuals and stuff like that. So it's a bit. Without going too far, we did some early drafts of the graphic design that were all very much they were almost too military. We felt we scaled that back. I think the early versions had like more camouflage patterns and stuff like that, and we felt that just was too much. So we actually scaled that back a bit.
Oh no! Hold on. What happened to Gotland?
Is it gone?
The mystery of
Is it gone? It's a mystery. I want to know.
Oh right, that's the writer who did the Sweden section. He's an old military guy and is also a game designer, and he writes horror books for a living these days, and he turned Gotland into a big mystery. So
it says it there, still a mystery.
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah,
you'd have to go there.
Let's go find out. Yeah.
I was looking as you were talking. I was flicking through because so here's a couple of things. You've got like what happened to the world as we know it. Okay, so what's happening in different countries. We mentioned that this box set is kind of focused on Poland or Sweden.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit here. I found it for the UK because I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
And so here we go. As the crisis builds, the UK remains a staunch supporter of the US and NATO, despite the rising anti-war movement stoked by the Soviet-backed Communist Party of Great Britain. Soon, many in the UK blame the US for the escalation of war. Then the nukes fly. That's... Well, I just got goosebumps. That's kind of like, wow. Okay,
yeah, those little backstories. I mean, we focused the game on Poland and Sweden as the main settings. Poland, obviously, because that was the original setting for the first edition and second edition. So we want to stay true to that. We added Sweden for two reasons. We felt it was only fair to if we're like destroying another country, we should also do it to our own, just to not be fair and also to show that this game can be played in any country that you want. You can adapt it to be played in different countries, different settings, and we felt a good way to illustrate that is to actually include 2 fleshed out settings in the game. But then we also added shorter sections of other countries like France, Germany, UK, US, and those sections are all written by nationals of those countries. We felt that, to give it a bit more authenticity, so that each of those texts are written by different writers. And then, of course, we didn't go into much detail about the rest of the world because we felt that that's not really what the game is about. It's not like describing what happens in every part of the globe. It's more of here and now, and so that's why we don't have a full global display of everything that's been going on, and also because we want to leave things a bit open to decide later and to let people decide for themselves.
Well, two things on that one. You mentioned one of the things that I've really enjoyed reading and discovering this game is initially I thought it was going to be set in America because most games are, most films are, and everything else. And then I was thinking, it's going to be like Red Dawn. If you remember the film Red Dawn, whether it's Patrick Swayze or it's Thor, Chris Hemsworth, his version. And it wasn't. And it was like, this is amazing because it's going to have more content. There's places I haven't seen, never visited before. And now it's too late because they've been decimated. Okay, where are we going to be in the world when it happens? And I love that aspect of the story. Then it was a case of, you mentioned a kind of expansion to this, and this has just come out, so I'm not expecting anything soon. But like Aliens, where we have these smaller box stories, are we going? And with Vezon, with a new Kickstarter coming out soon, are we going to see different countries as expansions, where we could see the UK?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah, we will do some expansions that will be more general, so you give more content that can be used in any country almost, like the one we're working on now, urban operations. It's going to be just focusing on cities and how to play in cities. It will include 2 example cities, but most of the content will be usable whatever city you want to use it in, and that's just to make it more usable. But yes, geographical expansions are definitely on the horizon as well, and the UK is a possibility. The US is also one. I mean, in the first edition they started out in Poland, but then they moved in and did a bunch of modules based in the US, and we might do a US module down the line also. But starting out right now, the focus is on the core settings of Poland and Sweden and these more general content expansions that can be used wherever your campaign is set.
It seems like you're going to be continuing the Swedish tradition of keeping Denmark pushed down as far as possible.
Yeah, that's a proud tradition.
No, it's fine. I get it. Yeah. I'm on board.
So inside the box, we also get some extra player maps. These are fold out. They put them out on the camera. These are about A3 in size. And they are a hex layout. I don't know if the camera will pick that. There you go.
Yeah.
So inside the referee's book, you have 4 or 5 different scenarios. What has been your favourite scenario?
Oh, good question. Like the maps you show there, they are of the specific scenario sites that we call them. They're like scenarios, but they're kind of location based. So you have 4 maps, one for each of those scenario sites. I think they're all great. It's hard to pick a favorite. And I wrote quite a lot of the game, but none of those scenario sites. So that's written by Chris Leitz and another guy called Nils Hintze, who wrote the scenario site. So it's hard to pick a favorite. I think they're all really great.
Yeah, these are really nice.
We've had Niels on before.
Oh, you did? Cool.
Yeah, for Vezon.
Right, yeah.
Now you've also got these kind of secret NATO documents.
Yeah. Yep. Those are, there's one for the Poland setting and one for Sweden. And basically they are intel reports that set the stage for the game. I mean, there is like a final operation called Operation Reset. That's a kind of a military offensive to reach Warsaw or Stockholm, depending. and that kind of fails, and that leads to the characters being on their own, basically, because that means that unit breaks down, or at least to a large extent. So that gives the players just what is this current situation, where are we, what's just been happening before the start of the game. And they're written in by we did bring on a military consultant for the game, his name is Chris Keeling. We have a few more actually military consultants, but he did most of that, and he wrote those reports. So they're generally written in the way such reports are written. I did cut it down a bit. His originals were a bit long, but apart from that, they are authentically written.
We also have quite a large, I think it's A2 in size, poster.
So that's a large travel map.
Yeah,
this
is really
Poland
nice.
on one side and Sweden on the other.
Now this is not the quality of this is quite thick paper. Is this kind of has a laminate on there?
Yeah, it's laminate paper. It's fairly thick, so because we feel that you might use that map quite a bit, and we don't want it to break and tear.
Yeah, this is not the quality for everything you get in the box. If you haven't yet got your hands on it, or if you're waiting for it to turn up in the post, the quality is, with all Free League products I found, is literally top notch. It is. Here's the bits and pieces I was like, what are these? But it's ruins. So you have your population centres, and the big cities are gone. But it's double-sided as well, so you have 2 lots available to you.
Yeah, that's Sweden on the other side. So yeah, and then it's fairly easy to create your own if you want to play in Denmark or in the UK or wherever. You can create your own hex map fairly easily. So and we have like blank empty maps, like templates that you can download from our website to help you create your own travel maps and battle maps too.
My husband loves making maps, and one of my favorite things about him that I found when I was going through his Legos is he drew a little map of America, but he got all the places wrong. And it's just so I love doing things like that, and I know he would get really engaged into something like that.
Yeah.
So you provide, in the box, you get 5 blank character sheets, but you do get a player's book, a handbook as well, and we'll come to that in a sec, which takes you through the steps of creating your own character. Now you can also, am I right in saying you can also download blank character sheets from the Free League website?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
There you go, so you always get some more, which is handy. Now, as well as the big map, as well as the A3 maps, you also have these little battle maps, or scenario battle maps, and these are really.
And they are, those are the generic battle maps. So they are not tied to a specific scenario. Instead, they're meant to. You can actually place them next to each other. So there are 8 of them, and they're double-sided, and you can. Some of them have like city environments, so they won't match. But others, the ones that cities will match other city maps. You can put them together and create larger battlefields. So that kind of you can put them together in different ways and create unique battlefields for the game. So that's what they are for.
What kind of material are they made of?
It's fairly thick paper and kind of like thin cardboard. I think it's 300 grams, if that if that tells you anything. But yeah, fairly thick, sturdy paper.
These are sturdy, and you can get a batch of these.
I just know that some of the kits that we've looked through and we've gotten have had the stuff that you can use dry erase markers on. Is this the same sort of stuff?
I guess you could. I'm not sure. We didn't design them with that in mind, I should say, but I guess maybe, yeah.
Maybe you should, because those are really helpful.
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, these are really, really nice. Now you also, to go with that, you also get tokens. So on the big map, if you're playing in person, once you have these, you can lay these out. So there you go, friendly and enemies.
Right, and that's a bit of a throwback to like the old war games that kind of had these little cardboard chits and the hex maps. And I think this is a kind of a a throwback to that and a bit of a modernized version of that. We feel it also works in gameplay pretty well. So it's yeah.
So what was the choice between why it's a throwback? That's fine. Are you going to release like miniatures? Is there going to be a range of those?
Maybe miniatures is a whole thing onto itself. So and I think actually for this kind of environment, there are already miniatures out there that players can use. So we don't have any plans at the moment to use to produce any miniatures, but you never know, could happen some point. But I think these cardboard, I think it works also for the feel of the game fairly well. So for the moment, that's what we're focusing on.
And this one is the Player's Handbook. There's 152 pages there. Again, really, really nice feel to this as well. It's got that matte feel to it.
Yeah, it looks like those old Boy Scout field guides.
You're right.
There. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of look is what we went for.
And you got, again, more of this beauty. I say it is beautiful artwork. It is quite this very atmospheric, but it's quite harrowing. I mean, you've got there's a derelict buildings or whatever in the background.
Right.
Look like maybe that's a farm. Sort of, but that's not recent destruction. This is your recent destruction with a downed helicopter by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Or a tank. I can't quite work out what that is.
Looks like a tank.
It's a tank, yeah.
Yeah, that one. Boom. And then you're huddled off, watching who's going to come. Potential civilian there that you may have to protect. Again, we've mentioned how good the artwork is. It is such a nice game.
It reminds me, and I don't know if you got Polish artists to do this, but it does remind me of this like art trend that we see from Poland of people pulling these images of like war and death and the history of the world wars in that area, and then adding those futuristic elements. So you'll see like a soldier with the cigarettes in their helmet, and they've got the laser rifle, and then there's a huge cyborg monster stomping through the woodlands of Poland. Yeah.
I mean, we did work with a Polish artist. His name is Jarek Kubicki. So some of the large color art pieces are done by him, like the first one we looked at there. There's also another artist called Gustav Ekelund, who's Swedish, who did some of the other spreads, like that one. So, but yeah, some of them are by a Polish artist.
Yeah, I know Eklund. He's really good.
Yep.
So good. You guys are so talented,
So we're coming. We've just gone over the hour, so we're going to wrap it up there, folks. Thomas, thank you. Oh, yeah, you got all the weapons and the vehicles there. I just flipped past. I did mean to show these off, but look, you got a whole range of vehicles that people have managed to get going. If you're lucky enough to pick them up. I mean, if you're lucky enough to get a tank, it feels. You kind of get that idea when you're playing around the table. You could kind of get that, the Band of Brothers feel. They're on a mission. They're just there together. And if you was to lose a member of your team, I'd imagine that could be quite memorable.
That's the word for it.
Yeah, but that's gonna. And there's your. I mentioned Walking Dead. There's your baseball bat with spikes.
Yeah. Yes.
And again, some more fantastic artwork on there. Shav Hunter, thank you very much for subbing. 14 months. Thank you. And some tactical stuff on there.
And there's a request for an actual play at some time. Oh, we can consider that.
Yeah, in fact, Glass Cannon have already been working with Free League. They've got a fantastic one up there. I think they've done 4 or 5 episodes at the moment. You can find it on the Free League YouTube channel, and you can find it on Glass Cannon. Really, really good. It's going to take us a while to assimilate all this information. We will be doing one in the new year. I don't know when, probably February, March. But I'm at the moment I'm putting it together. Steve is going to be GMing Aliens. I'm going to be doing Symbaroom. We've got a lot going on, but yes, we love the Free League stuff. So keep coming back. Keep checking our channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you won't miss out when we do things. But yes, thank you very much for spending the time with us today, Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Or this evening,
Thank you.
I should say, because it is our evening.
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm just going to switch over to that. What can we tease? Is there anything we can tease? What's next for Twilight? We've kind of hinted around things, you know.
Yeah.
You smiled quite a lot at the TV series.
Right.
I'm wondering how far along that you signed deals with Netflix there.
That's well, yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the game, I mentioned urban operations. We have another module for more like water, lakes, rivers, that kind of environment. That's in the works. And we have something called Operation Reset, which is a campaign module that will introduce some more long-term goals and some things that I think will shift focus a little bit, which will be, I think, I'm really looking forward to that one myself. And then there's a module called The Black Madonna, which is a remake of an old classic written by the same author who did the original one back in '85. He's writing a remake, so that was a stretch goal in the Kickstarter, so that's also in the works. So and then maybe some other, like I mentioned, US expansion and some other things. So we have lots of plans.
Fantastic.
But not Denmark.
Denmark, you never know. Could happen. Yeah.
Just not yet. Okay, we're going to leave it there, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. Thomas, thank you very much for spending the time.
Thank you.
We're just going to wrap things up. And if you missed it when we put it on earlier, I'm just going to play the trailer for you, and then we're going to go raid someone, I think. So stay tuned for that, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.